Hello artists! Today we are creating a work of art inspired by two different female artists. The first is Georgia O'Keeffe, who is famous for creating art inspired by the desert, including this landscape we see. And the second is Jen Stark, who's famous for her abstract and super colorful paintings that often had patterns like this really drippy one. So we're going to talk about her more later, but today we'll start with Georgia O'Keeffe. So we're going to create a desert landscape like hers, but ours is going to have some cactuses. So let's get started. You're going to need a pencil, an eraser, a permanent marker, I'm using a Sharpie, a washable marker, mine's a Crayola, make sure that it is washable, a paintbrush, and a cup of water. To start, I have a big piece of paper. It is tall, so that means it's going up and down in front of me, so I can make some nice tall cactuses. And we're going to draw a line going across the bottom to show where the ground is. I gave mine a little bit of a curve, or you could make it straight. Let's start with a traditional cactus that's nice and tall with some arms. So right in the middle of my paper, I'm going to draw a vertical line that stops when it gets to the ground. Then I'm going to make the first arm of my cactus. So I'm going to add a curve that goes out to the side. It should not be longer than your first line. So this is, it might look a little small on our screen, but this is a huge paper. I'm making a big, tall cactus. Then I'm going to curve up. Whoops. Whoops, I went a little too far. See, everybody makes mistakes. I curved a little too much. There we go. That's better. Then I'm going to go straight up. Add a curve at the top. And go back down about halfway. And then turn back towards the center. Something like that. Now let's work on the other side of our cactus. I want my cactus to be nice and wide, so I'm going to make sure I could fit at least 3 fingers inside of it before I add my other vertical line, and this one's going to go past that first one. And then add another arm to your cactus. So curve out, up, across the top, back down, and in towards the center. Then I'm going to draw the top of my cactus. So I go up, curve across the top, and back down. Nice. I'm going to adjust this line so it comes down a little bit more. We're always working on making our art better. The first time we draw something, it is rarely perfect. We can always edit. That's what our erasers are for. And let's add some lines to our cactus to show the sections. Put your pencil at the top middle and draw a line going straight down to the bottom. And put your pencil at the top middle again. This time curve out to the left and then straight down. So I went down the middle of that space. Now we're going to go the other way. So go back to the middle, curve out towards the right, and straight down. Now before I draw the lines in the arms of my cactus, I'm just going to connect between here and here, and here and here. Let's go to this right side first. Put your pencil at the top middle of the arm. We're going to go straight down the center and turn with the arm until we get to the body of the cactus. Go back to the middle, curve to the left, and follow that same path in the middle. Make sure your lines are not touching each other. Back to the top middle, curve to the right, follow it down. Very nice. Same thing on the other one. Let's go to the top middle, follow down the center of the arm, go back to the top middle, curve to the left and down, back to the top middle, curve to the right and down. And I know I'm moving really quickly today. Please remember that we always can pause our videos. We can go back and rewatch things if we need to. That's the great part about following along with the video. Now let's draw a different type of cactus. I'm going to draw a cactus that has big round pads on it. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and this one's going to be really big. So let's make a big loop that goes way up and way down. And I ended far away from where I started, but it still looks like almost like a circle. Now I'm going to add one from the edge here. So I'll curve up, and I'm almost to the edge of my paper, and back down. Let's go on the top of this one, and now we're going to go off to this side a little bit. And it is smaller than the one it is on top of. So we're like large, medium, small. I can even add a smaller one right here if I have space too. And maybe even a little tinier one on top of that. So cute. And I'm going to add a little flower at the top of this cactus. So I'm going to put a curve going up, and then one across from it, and then just connect with some zigzag lines. And you could do the same thing on the little one too. Two curves, connect with a zigzag. I'm going to put one last cactus down here. I'm going to make it nice and short and fat. So I'm going to curve up, over, and down. Ooh, my curve got a little wiggly over there. That's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. That's why we draw nice and light, so we can erase. And then I can fix that. So if you notice, I didn't erase my entire cactus just to fix that one little spot. Okay. So this one doesn't need lines in it, but this one does. Start at the top middle. That's curved to start out to the left a little bit. Go back to the top middle, curve to the right. Then I'm going to move over. So I'm not at the top middle. I'm over a little bit and add one curve. Go over a little bit, add another, and do the same thing on the other side. 1, 2. So I've got about 6 lines on there. And I'm going to put a flower on top of this one too. This time I'm going to do it like a little loop-de-loop. So right in the middle, I'm just going to loop, 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 and back down. I can even put a smaller one inside of that, just for a little extra detail. Okay, speaking of detail, let's put some spikes on our cactuses. So the spikes on this cactus are all going to be on the lines. So I'm going to start on this curve right here, and towards the top I'm just going to do a little line going up, and then from the same starting point go down a little bit. So it's almost like a little V sitting on that line. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so it looks like a V that's sitting on the line. Then I'm going to move down a pretty far amount and add another one. Move down, V, move down, V, move down, V. Very nice. And I'll go back up, and this time I'm going to go in the middle of each of those and put my V in the opposite direction. I'm still on that same line. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not too many. I'm going to do the same thing on these 2 lines as well. So I'm going on one side, kind of trying to go in between these, going out, and then on the other side in between my V's. Starting to look prickly, and I'm going to do it to this side too. And we're going to also add the V's to our arms of our cactus. Now we are going to cut these cactuses out. So I'm not going to put the spikes coming out from the edge of my cactus. We can add those later when we glue this paper to our background, which will be, like we said, inspired by Jen Stark. So I'm adding these spikes to my cactuses, And then I'm also going to add them to my little cactus right here. And I'm going to put them on my round cactus over here too. So I'll do that now. Okay, so I finished all the spikes. Because we don't have lines in this cactus, my V's are just kind of randomly spaced out and they're pointing in all different directions. So now the last thing I'm going to do with pencil is I'm going to add another line to show the desert. Because if we look at a landscape, there's multiple parts of the land going across. So up above the first one, I'm going to add another line. It could be up higher or lower. I'm going to put mine about right here, going across, and I'm going to jump across my cactus to the other side and do the same thing the other way, like that. Ooh, it's starting to look a little more realistic. And then if you'd like to, you can also add a sort of mountainy line behind your cactus as well. That would look maybe something like this. So it's not a sharp angle. I'm just going to go up, kind of go down, and maybe back up again this way, and back down. So it's very gentle and natural looking. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to trace the entire drawing with our Sharpie. Also going to add some texture for sand in these two sections. So I'll show you that first before we trace. I'm just going to take my Sharpie and use the tip very gently. So I'm not stabbing my paper. I'm just going like this. You should not be able to hear your Sharpie, and it should look like little dots, not little lines. Some in that section, and in this one. And I'm not going to do it in my mountain section because that's a mountain. It's not covered in sand. Then I can very carefully trace every part of my drawing. So go ahead and do that now. When you're done tracing everything with Sharpie, take a nice eraser and go over any spots where you may have missed. You can see right here, I ended up curving that line a little bit more with my Sharpie. So I use my hand to hold the paper nice and firm so it doesn't move. And I'm just gonna go around and erase any spots, sorry, my head gets in the way there, that I did not trace over. Nice. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to use our washable marker with our paintbrush and some water to show some shading in our landscape. So it's going to make it look a little bit more realistic. I'm so excited to show you this. So take your washable marker. Again, it has to be washable. Make sure that it is before you start this or it will not work. You can also experiment with this on some scrap paper before you try it out for yourself too. So at the bottom of my cactuses, that's going to be the darkest spot, because if the sun is up at the top, then that shines down at the top of our cactuses, making the bottom the darkest place. So I'm going to take my washable marker, again, make sure it's washable, and I'm going to put my marker at the bottom of my cactus, and I'm careful not to get any down here, but I'm just going to trace the bottom part of the lines of my cactus. So I stayed inside of it, but I just traced that bottom part. Then I'm going to take my brush, get it wet, and I'm going to use the water to spread out that ink. So I start by getting all of the lines wet. I kind of let it sit for a second to start to wake up and spread that ink. And then I'm just going to drag my line up like that. You can also go back and you can add more if you'd like the bottom to be a little bit darker. I think I'm going to do a line across the bottom and add some short lines coming up. And go ahead and spread them like that. Then I'm going to, whoa, I almost hit my marker in the water, do the same thing here. So I'm going to go from the edge of the cactus in, the cactus arm in, take my water, wake it up, and then spread it towards the top. So it goes from dark to light, I'll do the same thing on this side. So basically I'm making lines that color in the part of the cactus's arm that touch the body. Get it wet and then spread it towards the top. So I'm just brushing towards the top so that it goes from dark to light. Very cool. Now it kind of spread a little bit outside of my cactus here. That's fine, it doesn't need to be perfect. Let's do the same thing to this one. So I'm going to trace the bottom lines, just the bottom half. So I go from the bottom, about halfway up, bottom, halfway up. I'm going to stay a little further away from the edge at this section just because maybe I can avoid having it run off. We're experimenting though, we're learning. Let's go ahead right across, get them wet. I'm not painting on this bottom area, just on my cactus. Ooh, it's starting to spread out. Then I can go in, maybe I'll add some more at the bottom. Spread that out. So it goes from dark to medium to light. Ooh, they're starting to come to life. Let's do the same thing to this cactus right here. So I am going to just draw some lines going up. So the bottom is going to be completely dark. And then I'm just kind of flicking my marker up to the top. So they go, even my lines go from dark to light. Let's see how this turns out. It's so fun to experiment. Get the whole thing wet. Ooh, it starts to spread immediately. And if you want it to be darker, you can add some more. I think it looks good. I'm going to add less lines to the ones up here. So just a few. This side of your marker if you want some fat lines. I'm not going to go really close to the edge right there. Whoops. Spread them out. Get them wet. So cool. So it's really neat how we can use our washable markers almost like paint. And this happens because that ink is washable. So that means that water can make it move around. And if you notice, our Sharpie lines haven't moved. That's because it's a permanent marker. And just a little bit of lines on my tiny one here. I'm not going to worry about the flowers. I'm just going to do the body of my cactuses. So cool. It's really neat how it makes them look 3D. All right, so that's part one of our landscape inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe and Jen Stark.